So last class we talked about the variable, and we know that each variable will store data with a type and a name. And we learn about 5 primitive types, which includes int for integer, double for the decimal number. We'll have string for the text, and char for a single character, and we have bool for the true and false data. And there is a rule we need to follow. And I see people asking, can we use float for decimal as well? Yes, but float will follow a different kind of format. And also, if you go in deeper with the C++, you will see the double and the float will have different, it will require different memory space. So for now, we will just stick with double for the decimal. But float is another type you could use for decimal number. Okay, and for the C++ name rule, last class we say that we can only use letter and digit, and technically you can also use the underscore. So underscore is the only exception you can have beside the letter and the digit. So you cannot use any other symbol. So let me just make it clear here. Okay, and you must begin with a letter or underscore. So if you really want to start with the underscore, that's also fine, but you can't start with a digit. And you cannot have on any symbol. Okay, so that's a rule we have for naming a variable. And to declare a variable, and we also know that it's a rule in C++, before we use a variable, we need to declare it. And the way we declare it is we will provide whatever type for the variable, and then you will give it a name. So you can have the type followed by the name, and then you will end it with a semicolon. Now to input from a screen, so you want to input a data from the screen to the variable, you can use cin, and then you will have the right arrow pointed to the variable name. And that will able to put the data you inputted from the screen to your variable. Okay, and an exercise we did at the end of the last class, I don't know, is everyone here? We ask, we want to ask user for their name, and we want to say hello to the name. So this is the code we have at the end of the class. So what happened here is we have the standard beginning. And then here we have the standard ending. And we need to create a string name to declare the variable name so we can store user's name later. Right, so here we have cin the name. So we will import the data from the screen to our variable. So before that, we need to declare it. Now, before we ask the user for it, you should always prompt a message so user know you are asking for the data. But if you, without asking what's the user, the screen will not have anything on it. So the user won't know. You need to input something. So before you want to do cin, you want to take in a value, you should always give a prompt. which one you want input. You must ask for it. So the way we will do it is to print a prompt and ask the user for the input. So when the user see what's your name, the user will know to type in their name. And then we will print hello to their name. So we'll have C out hello followed by the name, and then we want to end line. So this is the same. This code here is the same as we have C out, and then we will print hello. And then we want to have like a space, so we can print the name later. Then we have C out the name of the user in the variable, and then we want to end the line. Now, if you see that here, these three coming out have the same instruction, or to print something to the screen. So there is a shortcut in C++ where you can output many things with one instruction. So instead of have 3 different lines for to output in 3 things, you can have one instruction for as many things you want to do. And it will print out in order. So we will print hello, followed by the name, and then the end line, and then you will end the line with a semicolon. You can do the same thing with the input seeing. So if you have multiple data you want to store in your variable, then you can put it with the one instruction as well. So let's see the code. So here I already have our code here, right? It will have a prompt ask what's your name, and it will import the name, and it will see out hello, the name, and then we will end the line. So if we compile it, and then run that, it will ask what's your name. Now, let's say I put my name here, and it will say hello with my name. Now, I see people asking last time, what if I put in my full name? I have my first and last name here. Now, what happened here, it will still say hi with my first name. Okay, and I see people still asking how do you open the C++ file and how do you compile? That's really the lab question. By now, you should learn how to do it. So if not, you need to do it in the lab and ask your lab instructor to do it. We can't spend the time in the lecture to explain those questions. Okay, and people in the chat can help each other answer each other's question. Okay, so the problem here is when we take in the input, whenever you have a space, it will count as a different data. So each data will separate it by a space. So my first and last name here is count as 2 input. So if you look at it here, when I ask for the input, it only taking 1 data. So it only store my first name to the name, and it will move on to the code. So it never deal with my last name. I see people raise the hand. Any question there?
I had a question. Can't you just create two string, one with says first name and one with last name?
Yeah, so one way we can resolve that. So let me copy the code. Okay, so to answer how you open a C++ file, you can do nano or pickle or min. It depends what your lab instructor show you. So here I will open the example 1B. So I want to change it here. So let's say you want to ask the user their first name and last name. So I will just call first and last. Okay, so to declare a variable, normally we have the string followed by the name. Now, since both variable name are the string type, you can also declare as many variables as you want with the same data type. So you can have one instruction for as many things you want to do as long as you are doing the same thing. So here, and you can separate, and then for the string, to declare the variable, you can separate it by comma. So this is the same as I'm declaring the string first, and then string last. So what I did here is the same as doing string first and string last separately. And then the 2/ means wherever after the 2/ C++ should just ignore it. So wherever after the double slash, it's just a comment for us, wherever the programmer to read. Okay, so the string first, comma last, it will be the same as you declare the string first and then the string last. And they both, you declare both variable with the string, so you can just put it in one line. I see people say when you use any type, and it will recognize to do that with the line and separate if you use semicolon. So semicolon, what it does is like you finish your wherever, like one of your instruction, one of your line. So the semicolon is it's pretty much till the C++ you finish with your commit.
Professor, I have a question. So when you input more than one word into the CN, how does it see it, like an array?
No, it was taking it. Or you mean how we input the data?
No, yeah, if you input more than one word, let's say, hi, my name is blank. How will I refer to like just the name?
Okay, so that's why if you put your full name first and last, it will count as 2 input. So just to see in name, it will only store whatever the first name you put in.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Right, so that's why if you really want to have your full name being printed, you need to create 2 variables to store your first and last name separately. So that's why now I'm modifying the code. So instead of just have the name, I have the string called first and last to store my first name and last name. Now I'm just saying that instead of declaring each variable with a string first, semicolon, string last, semicolon, you can put it in one line separated by comma.
Professor? Now that you changed the string, do we have to change the CN too?
Yes, we need to change the CN too.
Okay.
What do you mean?
Now we don't have a variable called name, right? So now we will, instead of asking what's your name, you will ask the user to to have your first and last name. And then what it does is you want to put input, you want to store their name into the first name. And then the second data, you want to import that into the last name. So what you can do is you can do cin first, and then you can do another cin last. Or you can do cin first, and then last. So this line is equivalent to this two line here. But because these two commands have the same instruction cin, you have cin first and cin last. Right? It's asking you to store your data into your variable. Right? So what you can do, if you want to put in like a single line, you can have cin first, and then wherever the second data, you will go into the last. So you will ask for two data. Now let me save it. And then I will compile my code here. I think I forgot to comment out.
Yeah, see out is still hello name.
Okay, so I forgot to change the C out. So once we store the first and last name, we want to print, we will say hello to their first name, followed by the last name. Okay, let's compile it. And then run it. So it will ask you what's your name, and then you will have your first and last name. So now we need to give two variables. So you will be able to give your first and last name, which in two words, separated by a space. And then if you look at it here, it will say, hello, my first name and last name. There's no space in between. Right? Because C++ will not know to put space in between unless you make it to have a space. So what happened here is it will print a hello, your first name, and right after your first name, it will have your last name. So if you want to have a space in between your first and last name, you need to code it. So you can, after the first name, you can print a space and then print your last name. And that way, when you use when you compile and run it, it will have hello, your first name with a space, and your last name. Any questions here?
Can you show the code again?
So here is the code. So you will declare two variables to store your first and last name, and then you will ask the user for it, and the user will give their first and last name. Right, so you will store the first name, store the last name, or you can do it in the same line, and then you will print out their first name, and then want to put the space in between and then the last name. Right, otherwise, if you don't put the space in between, right after your first name, it will have your last name with no space in between. Questions?
How do you save the code?
It depends on what compiler you use. Okay, so for this kind of question, ask your lab instructor. Okay, so for today's class, we will learn how to change the variable of a numerical variable, or we will learn how to initialize your variable. Right, so some people ask before, can we just use the equal sign? Yeah, so you can initialize your value in when you declare it. You can just have you can just set it equal to whatever things you want to set it to. So let's say I create a variable called int x. So what it does is it will create as a box with x, right? And we know it will store the integer. So let's say I store a file in it initially. So to set set your variable to a number, or you want to initialize it, instead of doing int x, you can do int x equals to 5. And you can always change a variable like you will have your variable name, equals to whatever things you want to change it with. So let me erase the first int x because I don't want to confuse you with declaring the x and then with initializing it. So what we did here, int x equals to 5, which we create a box named x that can store integer for us, and then we initialize it to 5, which means we will just start putting 5 to it instead of just creating an empty box, which will store integer for you later. So we just put a value to it at first. And now let's say later you don't want this number 5, but you want to change it to, let's say, 17, which you can later write down the code. You can just have x equals to 17. So you don't need to have another int since you already declare your variable x to be an integer type. So to change the value, you just need to set x equals to 17, which way it does, it will change this 5 to 17. Now you can also do some more complex thing, like you can set it equals to 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 and minus 12. Then why are you changing the x now? Anyone?
What?
So if I later change, I want to, okay, so I just changed the 5 to 17 in this line. Now let's say later I change the x with 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 minus 12. What am I changing this x to?
-2.
So now you will change there's 17 to -2 now. So you see that we can do arithmetic in C++. Okay, so we can have add, right, for addition, and then minus for subtraction, and then you will have time, right, the star for multiply, right, for multiplication. Now, if you have x equals to 2 times 3 plus 1, what's your x equals to?
7.
Okay, so your x here will be 7. Now, if your x is 1 plus 2 times 4, what will your x now become?
12.
Okay, see people say 12. Is it 12 or 9?
9.
Sorry.
It will be 9, right? If you just look at it, you have 1 plus 2 times 4. But we probably learned the people learn pandas here, right? So I see people say pandas, and I see people asking what's pandas. So that's the precedent when we do the arithmetic, which means we will do multiplication or division before addition and subtraction. So here you have addition and multiplication. You need to do multiplication first. So you will do 2 times 4 first. It will give you 8, and then plus the 1, that will give you 9. So the precedence in C++ is the same as in math, right? So C++ will work as how we did in math, right? Which we will have multiplication and division before addition and so you have addition and division before multiplication and division before addition and subtraction. Right, and then for pandas, which means it will follow the pandas. So pandas means you have parenthesis, exponent, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So if you have parenthesis always overrides everything. So wherever in the parenthesis, always go first. Now, besides that, if you have any exponent, you will deal with exponent first, and then multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So this is just order of how you do things. I see people listing the pandas in the chat. Okay, so if I say x equals to 1 plus 2 with a parenthesis times 4, then the x
12.
will give us 12. Questions? Okay. I see people asking how do we write exponent in terminal. The answer is we don't. We can't use the caret for exponent. So we will avoid it. So if you really need to use exponent, so for example, you will need to do x cubed, then we'll just do x times x times x 3 times. Because C++ don't read the caret sign. So you just can't do it. We need to find a way around it.
We have to manually input exponents.
You pretty much need to multiply it however many times you want for the exponent, right? Because exponent means you multiplying the number however many times, right? So if you have to the third power, that means you multiply the number 3 times. So you kind of need to marry.
Would we use parentheses?
We are allowed to use parentheses. So parentheses allowed in C++.
There must be also a way for us not to write the exponent to like 100, right? Like 80 times.
Yes.
Like
So there's way we can around it. So which later when we get into the C++, there's something called the library. So there will be math library for you to do. So where people pre-coded the exponent for you. So there will be function you can use to calculate the exponent. But that will be too much for what we are doing now. And I see people say loop. Yeah, so we can also write function on our own or write loop on our own to calculate the exponent. But still, we are not there yet. Okay, so by the end of the class, we should be able to learn how to do those things or how to at least write exponent on our own. Okay, and notice that we haven't do division yet. So we mentioned addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Just give me a second. Okay. Now division, as expected, will be written as slashed, the over sign. Now, if I ask you what's 6 over 2, what do you think the answer gonna be?
12.
We are doing over, right? We have 6 over 2. We should expect answer 3. Now, what if we have 10 over 3? What do we expect x to be?
3.333.
It will be 3. Like the answer would be 3. The output.
Okay, so I see some people say 3 and I see some people say 3 point something. What's the primitive type of x? Or what's the data type of x? And I see people say x.
Int.
What's the data type of x?
The beta?
Integer. Integer. Yeah.
It's the integer type, right?
Yeah,
Because that's
whole
that's
number.
what we declare the variable x at the beginning. But remember at first we have int x equal to 5, which we declare this variable x as an integer, which means your x can only store the integer. So what it does is your x will only take the quotient part of your x. And I see people say it round. C++ doesn't do rounding for you. It's not smart enough to do the rounding. So it will just give you the quotient. But remember when you first learn division, but before you even learn decimal number, you probably only encounter the integer. How did the teacher teach you division? You will say 10 divided by 3. 3 can only go into it 3 times, and then with 1 left over. Right? You learn with quotient and the remainder. So when we do the integer division, it will only give you the quotient. So I will give you a rule here. When you divide 2 integers, you will get integer answers. Right, so for example, here, 10 divided by 3, you will think of it as 3 will go into 10 3 times with remainder 1. So the answer will be 3. Now this rule not only apply for divide, it also work for other operation. So when you combine 2 integer with any operation, you will get an integer answer. And I see people say, well, you show mod. If you care about what's the remainder, you can use the mod to solve for the remainder, and that's the operation we have. So the divide here, the division, the integer division will give you the quotient. So to find the remainder, you will use the mod to find the remainder. So that's actually the 5th operation you will learn today. So that will be, so the remainder will be the mod operation, which you can use 10 mod 3, and that will give you 1. And this percent sign, we will read it as mod. So the percent sign is the mod operation. Okay, so let me write it. So that's your 5th operation you will learn today. So x mod y, where you can read it as x modulo y, or you can just simply call it mod. This means the remainder when you take x divided by y. So this percent sign is pronounced as the modulo, but people just make it short, call them mod. So here is the arithmetic rules. When you combine 2 integer, combine means when you use operation on any 2 integer, it will give you an integer result, integer answer. Now, when you combine anything else, it will give you a double answer, which means if you're doing an operation mix with integer and double, or when you do a division on an integer and a double, then it will give you a result double. Now, if you do operation between double, then you will get a double result. But only when you do operation between integer, you will get integer result. All right, so for example, if you have 10.0, so when you see 10.0, this will become a decimal number. So it's not integer. This is a double. What's 3.0 over 10.0 over 3.0?
3.333.
So you will get 3.333. Now, what about 24 over 10.0?
2.4.
It will give you 2.4. Now, what about 5 over, you know what, let's do 5.0 over 2. It will be 2.5, since they are not both integer. Now, what about questions?
This is stored as a double, these point O's.
Yes. So if you need to store those values, it will be stored in a double. If you store it in an integer, then you will get an error message. So when you have 5 over 2, it will calculate it as an integer. So it will give you 2.
Professor, is this going to be also part of the lab exercise? Because I would like to see it in the terminal itself.
You can run that. You can write some number in make a program and then have some arithmetic in it, and then you can check yourself.
Okay.
Okay, so since this is like a 111 class, if you're not sure what will happen, you should always just try it out. Right, so if you run it into an error message, then you know there's something wrong, then you will be aware not to do it next time. So if you're not sure what will happen, just do it. Like do it, like type it into your program, then run it and see what will happen. And sometimes from the experiment, you will be able to learn something from that. Okay, so let's see. Now, if you have 4 plus 20 over 10.0, what do you expect the outcome gonna be? Okay, so people say 2.4. Now, what about you have 4 plus 24.0 over 10. Okay, I see people say 6.4. Right, how do you get 6.4? So we will do, so between addition and division, we will do division first. So we have, so we have 24.0 over 10, and that will give us 2.4 since we have a double divided by an integer. So that's 2.4, and then we add it with a 4. So have an integer plus, we'll have integer plus with a double, so it will return us a double. Now, what about 4.0 plus 24 over 10?
6. Wait.
It's the same thing.
Okay, see people say 6.4, and I see people say 6.
6.0.
Okay, so let's see what happened here. When we have 4.0 plus 24/10, what do we need to compute first?
Division.
Division. So we need to compute this part. And what's 24/10?
2.
2. Why? Because we have an integer over an integer. So it will give us 2. Now we will add the 2 with 4.0. So we will have double plus integer. So we should get a double result, which is 6.0. Okay. So I pre-coded some exercise. Let's see. What do we expect? Let's see. What? Let me just run it. I see people say it was an integer because it was an integer, so the answer had to be an integer. So if you look at it here, 24/10, 24 and 10 are both integer. And from the rule, the arithmetic rule here tells us when you combine two integer, combine means when you apply whatever operation between two integer, you will get an integer result. So here, 24 and 10 are both integer. So when you do 24/10, you will get a result of 2. And then you apply 4.0 with 2. 4.0 is a double. You add that with the integer, you will get 6.0. Okay. Now if you look at it, what's 24/5 will give you? Right, so we will expect an answer of 4. Now what about 24 mod 5, which means we are looking for the remainder.
It's also 4.
It's also 4. Now what about 24.0 over 5.0? That will be 4.8. Right, so you will see it will give you 4.8. Now if you see 24/5.0, an integer with a double, we will expect a double result, so we have 4.8. So if you want to see the code, right, what I have here is I coded the question with the answer, right? The only thing you need to be aware is like I have the integer answer and I have the D answer for the double answer. So to store the answer for the 24.0/5.0, I'm storing into the double, because otherwise you will get an error message. I see people asking what's the answer represent. That's the double answer. So I just declare a variable called double answer. So this is the answer for double, right? This is the double type. So I just create something that's double so we can store the answer for the double type. Okay, so that's pretty much what I want to cover today. So we will end the class here. And for people who want to stay, I can show you, if you're not sure of something, you can always quickly write a program to check your answer.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, so I will
Thank
just
you.
Bye, thank you.
okay, have a nice day. And also next Monday through I think starting from Friday till next Wednesday, there's no class, right? It's the Labor's Day and the Rosh Hashanah. So the next time we will meet is a week from today on the 9th, next Thursday.
Take care, Professor. Thank you.
Take
Okay,
care.
have a nice weekend.
Take care. Have a good
You
one.
too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Take care.
Take care.
Okay,
Professor, just to make sure, before I sign out, there's nothing due, right, for the next time that we in class?
not for the lecture. Wherever your lab instructor asks you to do
Okay.
as your exercise or assignment thing, you ask your lab instructor.
Okay, got it. Okay, I'm done with that. Thank you.
Okay, so you can just quickly create a file. I just call it example.cpp. And then I will have the standard heading. Okay, after this standard heading, so let's say you want to, you can actually just see out whatever operation you want to see, right? So for example, here we have 4 plus 20 over 10.0. So we want to print the result of this and then we'll end the line. And then let's print 4.0 plus 24 over 10, because I think this is the one most people get confused with. And I think we missed one. We can have 4 plus 24.0 over 10. Okay, so this is our body, and then we will have the standard ending. So we will always end it with return 0, semicolon, and then close the bracket. So if you save the code, and then compile it, you will see you will get 2.4 for the first answer, since you will get 24 over 10.0. So you will get a double result. And then you will have the 4 plus the 24.0 over 10. So you'll get 2.4 plus the 4, you will get 6.4. Now here you will get 6 and you will get 2 from the 24 over 10 and you add the 4.0. Now there should be a double type since you have 6.0, and then since you print the double, they kind of just ignore the 0.0, but this is a double type. Okay, so we will end it here. And I will see everyone on next Thursday.
Professor, I had a quick question. So for the exams, that will be taking place during class time, right?
Yeah, it will be taking place during the lecture.
And
so it will be during this class.
Okay, and it would be in the Mars server, or
No, it will be on Blackboard. So you won't be asked to turn on any server. So the only thing you will need to open is the Zoom, which is the class link here. You will need to turn on your camera, and you will open your Blackboard and have only your exam open.
Oh, okay, and then we're supposed to figure it out without using the Mars server?
you
Or-
will just type you will just type your program straightly in the text box. So you can't really check it.
Oh, okay. So what we would be doing for the test would be the what you demonstrated before you clicked and then it gave you the answers, right?
Yes, it's pretty much you see like I normally write the code on like on the screen first. So pretty
Mhm.
much wherever you wrote, that's like your exam.
Oh, okay. Because I was kind of confused by that, but okay.
Right, because if this is like a in-person exam, then where do you put your code? In paper.
Oh, okay.
So pretty
Okay.
much wherever you put in paper, that you will be typed into the Blackboard.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Bye, Professor.
bye.